The definition that we use for creative intelligence is that it's the ability to understand, interpret, and act with your imagination. It's like a mindset or like a way of thinking, design thinking, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with or not. It's very much like a set methodology and like 4 stages that you tend to follow. And as you work through a problem, the way that we kind of envision creative intelligence working is it's more like, oh, here are some principles or guidelines that I can use in my everyday just to help me think a little bit differently as I go through my normal job or even normal conversations with other people in your personal life, side projects, passion points, etc. So it's supposed to be less structured than a framework or a methodology. It's very much supposed to be just a way to help you think a little bit differently or approach life a little bit differently. IQ is very much focused on logical and rational reasoning. And then emotional intelligence, EQ, is based on your emotions. So how can you understand, use, and kind of manage your own emotions in a positive way. Where creative intelligence fits into there is you kind of got rational and logical, emotional, and then creative intelligence is all about creativity and imagination. So how can you take something and then think about it or apply it in a way that hasn't been done before, or in a way that you haven't been done before. And personally, I think all of these different types of intelligences should actually be used at the same time. Like, I don't think you necessarily should focus on one or the other. But it's about being able to have like a more well-rounded way of thinking or way of approaching life. We think that like creativity in the world is very important, and there are studies that show that as humans age, as we grow into adults, we actually get less creative. And if you think about the education systems around the world, the way that they're set up and around how it's like you learn a certain thing and then you get tested on it and there's like one right answer, it almost like educates creative thinking out of people as they grow up as well. So we have decided that creativity is like really important and that we should be trying to reintroduce it to people or help people develop it or rediscover their imagination. So we do think that creative intelligence is like should be a really big deal. Like, it should be as important as IQ and EQ. We have 5 creative intelligence principles, I think 5 sections. So there is expand your mind, which is all about understanding your biases and trying to look at things from a slightly different perspective. So we very much talk about cognitive bias a little bit and how you can kind of recognize what biases you might have and how you can try and approach things with that in mind, so you at least know how you might be subconsciously influenced. The second principle is challenge your default, and this is a little bit what I was talking about earlier around it's really easy to get stuck in your ways when you do things. So how can you consciously try to do things differently or look at a challenge from a slightly different angle in order to kind of uncover these new possibilities when looking at something. The third principle is build your creative confidence. If it's one thing that I've learned from joining this company, it's that you really need to be comfortable with ambiguity, and that's really, really hard. I really struggled with it at the start. So the third principle is very much about embracing your instincts, and there's a big piece in there around recognizing that it's actually okay to fail, and that was a massive topic within the team when we went through that kind of principle together, is that there is this really, I don't know, I think negative culture around failing and how you should avoid it at all costs, whereas it could actually be a very positive and constructive experience if you look at it in the right way. So we talked about that quite a lot. The fourth principle is to seek out diverse perspectives. So when you are having a conversation, working on a project, you want to find out about a particular topic, it's really important to not only talk to those who might have a similar perspective to you, but to go and find people who will bring like different information. So one of the things I always like to tell people is, why don't you go and find someone who actually disagrees with you and have a conversation with them and see what comes out of that conversation, because I'm sure you'll actually be surprised at how interesting that conversation might be. And then the fifth and final principle is to adopt an experimental mindset. So this is very much about sharing ideas or opinions early, testing and learning, kind of not fully forming an idea in your kind of little silo, but getting it out there into the world and learning as you go. So those are the 5 principles. The way that the course works is you get an introduction or an explanation to each principle. There's an example, so from the business world or another kind of real world example. And then the final part of each principle is that there is like either an activity or a way that you can live that principle. And there is as well before and after thinking exercise in there for you to kind of help you see how your thinking might have changed as you've done the course. So right at the very start, we ask you to come up with a few ideas on how you might design a better pencil. And then you go through the course, you read through all the different principles, and then at the end we ask you to do that exercise again and kind of like compare and contrast the different types of answers that you have. There's definitely additional like reading material throughout there. So if you were to sit down and diligently read everything from start to finish, including all the extra material, we're estimating that it might take around 8 hours. If you just read the content that was in the course and didn't really click out into any of the additional links, we've heard from some people who have done the full course that you could probably do it in an afternoon, so about like 4 hours. So you can very much pick and choose kind of how long you spend, how deep you want to go into each topic. A certificate that you'll get at the end, which is awesome. There's also a Creative Intelligence alumni group on the Sense Network. So once you've completed the course, you get added to that group and you can have discussions with people that have already gone through the course. So you'll be able to kind of like tag it on your LinkedIn profile. The course that's currently available is an introductory course. So we're currently working on a much more comprehensive course that you will actually have like a cohort as you go through. You'll have availability, like office hour availability with someone on the team, so you can discuss what you've been learning and any questions. Plus there'll be like a multi-week project that you'll work on throughout the course and kind of be able to apply and develop what you're learning, and kind of almost like have the end project as something that you can show at the end.